Hello and welcome back to another video. I'm Gruler65 and this is HEI Shipyards. I've made quite a few videos at this point about combat, gameplay systems, community feedback, and the possible future of Space Engineers 2. But I've never really stopped to explain who I am, why I started these videos, or what I actually want this channel to become. Honestly, I didn't even think about it till recently. So, what is this video about? HEI Shipyards creates game design focused videos about the future of Space Engineers 2, at least for now. I'll do some other stuff later. The channel identifies gameplay systems, explores interconnected system designs, evaluates their strengths and trade-offs, and gives the community a structured place to discuss what those systems should accomplish. The purpose is not to simply request more features, it is to generate an informed community commentary that can help shape conversations about the future of the game. I do not want to be overly critical of the project, but I also don't want to be undercritical of it either. I want to evaluate it honestly. As you can probably tell from some of my recent videos, I'm very critical of the first Space Engineers. I quit a long time ago because of the lack of gameplay. I love the game though. I spent an enormous amount of time building ships, designing systems, experimenting with mechanics, and creating things that probably would not have been possible in any other game. I think I have like 1,500 hours, which, by the way, I only have 1,500 hours in like a couple of games, so that's a lot of my time personally. But I've also always believed that Space Engineers 1 has struggled to give players enough reasons to use everything it allowed them to build. It's an incredible sandbox, but the world often places very little pressure on the player. You can build a warship, but there's may not be meaningful war to fight, except for maybe the fact tournament PvP if you're on a server. You can build a mining fleet, but there may not be a larger industrial reason for that fleet to exist. You can construct stations, logistics networks, defensive installations, and specialized vehicles, but the game doesn't always provide enough external pressure or motivation to make those creations necessary, or more usable in a lot of instances. There's nothing inherently wrong with the sandbox. Player freedom is one of the most important parts of Space Engineers the game. It always has been. But I believe sandbox becomes much more compelling when it includes pressures, motivations, and reasons for the players to use that freedom. A game doesn't need to tell the players exactly what to do. However, it should create problems that encourage the player to engineer their own solutions. This is something I believe the first game often lacked. Over the last several years, however, the direction of Space Engineers has noticeably improved. The later updates to the first game began adding more reasons to explore, progress, fight, trade, build infrastructure, and interact with the world. And from everything that Merrick and the development team have publicly discussed, Space Engineers 2 appears to be approaching those ideas with a lot more importance, much earlier and much more deliberately. It looks like the team is not only trying to create a better building sandbox, they're trying to create a more complete game around that sandbox. A game with progression, survival pressures, industry, factions, exploration, combat, and interconnected systems that give the players reasons to build different machines for different purposes. That direction is why I began writing gameplay proposals in the first place. Initially, I created the channel for a very simple reason. I wanted more people to see my feedback posts. Really, that was it. I had ideas about these mechanics that I believe could significantly improve the game and wanted to generate community commentary around those ideas, because I saw a lack of those ideas or that commentary in those particular areas. The videos are a way of bringing people into those discussions, but As I continued researching, writing, and listening to community feedback, the purpose of the channel began to expand. I became less interested in simply saying, here's a feature that Keen should add, and more interested in asking, what problem is this feature supposed to solve? What player behavior should it encourage? What other systems should it interact with? What are the trade-offs? And what could go wrong? And my proposed solution, is it even the best answer? Or is it simply one of the possible answers? That's where I believe this channel can provide something valuable. I do not want to simply make a wish list of cool systems and mechanics and gimmicks. I want to examine game design. And while I don't have a background in it, I think it's important. That means identifying problems, exploring possible systems, challenging those systems, and giving commentary. That means identifying problems, exploring possible solutions, challenging those systems, and giving the community enough context to discuss those problems productively. Obviously, I talk a lot about combat. Now, a lot of people on Discord, I guess, called me the combat guy. But combat does not exist separately from the rest of the game. And that's why I'm so invested in it. Combat is influenced by industry, resources, logistics, progression, ship construction, propulsion, power generation, and the environment. And every other system that Keen makes inside of the game. For example, radar and scanning affect whether an enemy can be found. Signature affects whether a ship can remain hidden. Thrusters affect whether it can control the distance of an engagement, like Digrock said in one of his earlier videos. Weapons determine what it can damage. Armor determines what it can survive. Heat can limit how aggressively its systems can be operated. Industry determines whether its ammunition, fuel, replacement ships, and parts can be produced. Regional resources and progression determine where conflicts happen and what players are fighting over. When those mechanics interact, combat becomes more than two ships pointing guns at each other. It becomes the result of decisions made during the entire design, construction, preparation, detection, positioning, and engagement process, and even allows for things like negotiation. That systems-based approach is what interests me. Not only in combat, but throughout the entire game. Constructive criticism is one of the main reasons this channel exists. My responsibility is not to defend Keen, but it's also not to attack them. It's to evaluate the game in the direction honestly. When I think something is moving in a good direction, I'll say so. When I believe a mechanic creates a problem, lacks depth, or encourages wrong player behavior, I'll try to explain why. And when I'm wrong, I'm willing to admit it. And when the criticism from the community exposes a weakness in one of my own proposals, I want to acknowledge that too. Going off to a slight riff for a minute, that's one of the reasons why I use Discord and Reddit a lot of the times for my proposals before I post them. It gives a lot of people opportunity to give feedback on my posts and give me a lot of new ideas. When I did the weapons proposal, there was a lot of ideas in there from community members that challenged some of the stuff that I said. And that's important. It's important because not everybody has this single thing that's going to change Space Engineers into something good. Every single individual person has a different perspective on the game. And that's important to Keen. But it's the difference between making a good consideration post versus attacking the developers or attacking the game directly, or being hypercritical of it to the point where it's not useful. These are the things that I want to avoid, but also include in my videos. I've already changed several of my ideas after examining them more critically, specifically on Discord through a lot of the people on there. That is part of the process. And just like Keen is building a new game, they need to take the risk to build something great. The goal is not every idea that I produce to be correct. The goal is to make meaningful conversation more useful to developers. Community feedback is a very important part of that. However, personally on my channel, if I were to request it, I don't want comments saying, this is good, this is bad, I want this, or I do not want this. Those reactions are still valuable in a way, but I want everybody to go further. Why do you support the idea? What conditions would need to exist for it to work? What play style would it damage? What alternative solution would achieve the same goal? What is the smallest version of the system that is proposed would still improve the game? Those are the kinds of questions that can turn community opinions into useful design information. And that's what I want HEI Shipyards to do. Identify the problem, examine the current behavior, establish what a system could accomplish, present possible solutions, criticize those solutions, and then give the community a structured place to discuss those and what a future of the game could look like. I still plan on making, ship showcases and engineering content and combat videos and, previews and all that other stuff that I find interesting. But HEI Shipyards will continue to grow and change over time. And for now, the primary focus of the channel is Space Engineers 2 and the gameplay systems that could define its future. I believe that the future looks extremely promising. Not because every problem has already been solved, and not because every idea being discussed will necessarily work. It looks promising because the foundation of the game is being built around systems that can grow and connect with each other. And also because the developers are willing to discuss those systems with the community while the game is still taking shape, and listen to community feedback. That creates a massive opportunity for us, the community. An opportunity for players to do more than request individual blocks or isolated features. And while a lot of people, especially on the website, they do this a lot. They kind of do this kind of disconnected feature thing. We can also discuss what behaviors the game should encourage, what problems those mechanics should solve, and how they could work together to create a deeper engineering experience. That's why I'm here. I'm Griller65, and this is HEI Shipyards. And we're going to continue digging into the future of what Space Engineers 2 could become, one gameplay system, one community discussion, and one video at a time. Thank you guys, and have a fucking great weekend.